Welcome to A1 Storyteller, the place where real-life lessons come to life through powerful, thought-provoking stories. Today we bring you a story filled with arrogance, injustice, and an unexpected twist that will leave you speechless. It's a story about how life can turn the tables in the most unpredictable way. A racist cop, full of his own power and prejudice, disrespects a black woman on a ski slope, never thinking twice about his action. But what happens next will shock him and you. Because when fate steps in, he learns a brutal lesson that no one could have seen coming. A breathtaking ski resort, white snow covering the mountains like a thick, fluffy blanket. The cold air is crisp, the sky a brilliant blue, and the slopes are alive with thrill-seekers gliding down in perfect harmony. It's a place meant for relaxation, adventure, and unforgettable memories. But for Samantha Hayes, an experienced skier and a respected orthopedic surgeon, her vacation is about to take a turn she never expected. Samantha is here to enjoy the slopes like everyone else, but her presence alone is enough to stir up the buried prejudices of a man who thinks he owns the mountain. Enter Officer Reynolds, a cop with a badge, a bruised ego, and a heart full of arrogance. The moment he lays eyes on Samantha, something in him twists. Maybe it's the fact that she carries herself with confidence, maybe it's because she looks out of place to him, or maybe it's simply because he believes certain spaces weren't meant for people like her. As Samantha prepares to take on the slopes, Reynolds and his friends start with the whispers, the condescending smirks. Then it escalates, the shoves, the words meant to degrade, the taunts designed to make her feel unwelcome. But Samantha has seen this before. She's no stranger to the ignorance of men like Reynolds, and so she does what she does best. She ignores them, focuses on herself, and refuses to let their hatred take away her peace. But arrogance is a dangerous thing. It blinds people, it makes them believe they are untouchable, and in just a few short moments, Reynolds will find himself at the mercy of the very woman he disrespected. One slip, one miscalculation, one stroke of bad luck, and suddenly, the man who thought he ruled the slopes is lying helpless in the snow, his legs shattered, his pain unbearable. And guess who's the only person who can save him? That's right, Samantha Hayes. The same woman he pushed, the same woman he insulted, the same woman he tried to humiliate. In that moment, power shifts, and Reynolds is no longer the strong, dominant figure he believed himself to be. He is weak, he is vulnerable, and he has to rely on someone he considered beneath him. This is a story about karma, redemption, and the unpredictable ways life teaches us lessons. Will Reynolds learn from his mistake, or will his arrogance prevent him from seeing the truth? Stay with us until the end, because what happens next will shock you. This is A1 Storyteller, and we're about to dive into a story you'll never forget. Let's begin. Samantha Hayes adjusted her ski goggles as she took in the breathtaking view of the snow-covered slopes. The crisp air filled her lungs as she prepared to glide down the mountain. It was her first time in Aspen, and she had been looking forward to this trip for months. A talented orthopedic surgeon, Samantha had finally taken a much-needed vacation. She was well aware that black skiers were a rare sight in places like this, but she refused to let that stop her from enjoying the sport she loved. As she positioned herself at the starting point, she noticed a group of rowdy skiers nearby. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a smug expression, eyed her with distaste. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn from the city," he sneered. Samantha ignored him, choosing instead to focus on the slope ahead. But as she pushed forward, she felt a sudden, deliberate shove from behind. She lost her balance and crashed into the snow. Laughter erupted behind her. "Oops, guess you weren't ready for that, huh?" The same man stood over her, grinning. His name tag, barely visible beneath his ski jacket, read Officer Reynolds. Samantha's temper flared, but she knew better than to engage. As she pushed herself up, Reynolds wasn't done. "You people don't belong here," he muttered. "Maybe stick to places where you can actually keep up." Samantha clenched her fists, but said nothing. She had dealt with racism before, and she refused to let this man ruin her day. With a deep breath, she adjusted her skis and took off, leaving the officer and his group behind. What she didn't know was that fate had a cruel way of bringing people together, whether they liked it or not. The slopes had been more challenging than Reynolds expected. Though he had been skiing for years, the fresh powder made maneuvering difficult. His overconfidence had cost him balance more than once. He sped down a steep incline, unaware of the hidden ice patch ahead. In a split second, he lost control, his skis tangled, and he was launched into the air. Time seemed to slow as his body twisted, crashing hard onto jagged ice. A sharp, searing pain exploded in his leg. The world blurred as agony consumed him. His friends were nowhere in sight. His radio, his phone, all useless in the depths of this frozen wilderness. Then, as if by some cruel irony, a familiar figure appeared above him. Samantha. She had been skiing down a different route when she heard the crash. Now she stood over him, assessing the injury with trained eyes. "Can you move your leg?" she asked. Reynolds groaned, pain etched into his face. "What does it matter?" he spat. "Just go away." Samantha let out a breath. "You're hurt, badly. If I don't help you now, you might lose your leg, or worse." Reynolds's pride wrestled with logic, but the pain was unbearable. He had no choice. "Fine," he gritted out. Samantha dropped to her knees, pulling off her gloves. "You broke your femur," she said. "You're going into shock." Reynolds watched as she worked swiftly, creating a makeshift splint. He wanted to protest, to tell her he didn't need her help, but he couldn't deny the expertise in her movements. Minutes passed, each one stretching unbearably. Finally, she looked at him. "We need to get you down the mountain. Can you hold on?" He hesitated, then, with no other option, he nodded. Samantha worked quickly, her medical expertise kicking in as she assessed Reynolds' condition. His leg was in bad shape, twisted unnaturally, swelling rapidly. The color draining from his face told her that shock was already setting in. The freezing temperatures didn't help either. If he stayed out here too long, hypothermia would be his next battle. She pulled off her gloves and placed her fingers against his pulse point. Weak but steady, that was good. For now. "We need to stabilize your leg before I can move you," she said. Reynolds groaned, his face tight with pain. Just leave me here," he muttered through clenched teeth. Samantha narrowed her eyes. "Not an option." She pulled off her backpack, reaching for the emergency supplies she always carried when skiing. Some may have called her paranoid, but being a surgeon had taught her that the unexpected could strike at any moment. She unzipped a compartment and pulled out a roll of gauze, a few sturdy ski straps, and a collapsible emergency splint. "You're going to feel this," she warned before gripping his leg just above the break. Reynolds barely had time to protest before a sharp pain ripped through him. A strangled cry tore from his throat, his body instinctively jerking away from her touch. "Stop, damn it!" "Hold still," Samantha snapped. "I need to align the bone as best as I can. If I don't, you might never walk properly again." Her tone left no room for argument. Gritting his teeth, Reynolds forced himself to stay still, though his fists clenched so hard that his nails bit into his palms. Samantha worked quickly, using ski straps and her emergency splint to immobilize his leg. Once she was satisfied with her work, she exhaled, looking up at him. His face was slick with sweat despite the cold, his breathing labored. "That should hold," she said, "but we're not out of the woods yet. I need to get you down to the base." Reynolds let out a shaky breath. "How the hell are you going to do that?" Samantha looked around. The ski patrol wasn't anywhere nearby, and there was no guarantee someone would pass by anytime soon. They were in a more advanced section of the mountain, far from the usual crowd. She knew there was only one way. "I'm going to drag you down," she said simply. Reynolds let out a humorless laugh. "You're kidding. Do I look like I'm joking?" Samantha pulled out a small but durable foldable sled from her pack. It was meant for carrying extra gear down the mountain, but today it would serve a different purpose. She set it up, then carefully maneuvered Reynolds onto it. He gritted his teeth through the pain, but he had no choice. Once he was secured, she took a deep breath, gripped the sled straps, and began the grueling descent down the mountain. It was slow, painfully slow. Every bump in the terrain sent fresh waves of agony through Reynolds. His breathing grew ragged, his hands curling into fists as he fought to stay conscious. Samantha kept going, her muscles burning from the strain of dragging his weight. The cold wind bit at her face, but she focused only on the path ahead. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Samantha's body screamed for rest, but she refused to stop. This was about more than just getting a man down the mountain. This was about proving a point, proving that character is revealed not in words, but in actions. And right now she was proving she was better than Reynolds in every way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the emergency station at the base of the slope. Paramedics rushed toward them, taking over immediately. As Reynolds was loaded onto a stretcher, he grabbed Samantha's wrist. His grip was weak, but she felt it nonetheless. Why did you help me?" he croaked. Samantha looked him dead in the eyes. "Because that's what decent people do." Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. The lesson in pain. Reynolds spent the next few days in a hospital bed, confined to a room that smelled of antiseptic and regret. His leg was wrapped in a thick cast, and the doctors told him it would take months before he could walk properly again, maybe even longer. It was a humbling experience. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the one in control. He wasn't the strong, dominant figure he had always believed himself to be. He was vulnerable, weak, at the mercy of others. And the person who had saved him? The same woman he had insulted. The irony burned more than the pain in his leg. He had plenty of time to think, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of that day over and over. The way he had laughed at Samantha, the way he had shoved her, the way she had ignored his hate and saved his life anyway. Would he have done the same if the roles were reversed? He didn't like the answer. A knock on the door snapped him out of his thoughts. He turned his head to see Samantha standing there, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. His throat went dry. He wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't sure how to face her. "I heard you'll make a full recovery," she said, stepping into the room. Reynolds exhaled, looking away. "Yeah, thanks to you." There was a long silence. Then, finally, he muttered, "I guess I owe you an apology." Samantha let out a small, humorless laugh. "An apology?" she repeated. "No, what you owe me is better than that." Reynolds frowned. "What do you mean?" She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "You need to do better, Reynolds. Not just for me, not just because of what happened, but because the way you think, the way you treat people, it's wrong. And if this experience hasn't taught you that, then I really did waste my time saving you." Reynolds swallowed hard. For once, he had no smart remark, no arrogant retort, just silence. "I don't expect you to change overnight," Samantha continued, "but at least be honest with yourself. You're not a good person, Reynolds, but maybe, just maybe, you can become one." With that, she turned and headed for the door. Reynolds stared after her, the weight of her words settling deep in his chest. For the first time in his life, he wanted to prove someone wrong. Not out of spite, not out of ego, but because, deep down, he knew she was right. Maybe he really could change. Maybe it wasn't too late. And that, my friends, is how life has a way of humbling even the most arrogant people. Officer Reynolds thought he had all the power, that he was untouchable, that his prejudices made him superior. But in the end, when he was at his weakest, it was Samantha, the very person he looked down upon, who saved him. This story isn't just about one man's mistake. It's about how our biases can blind us, how hate and ignorance can push us to hurt others only for life to turn around and teach us a lesson we never saw coming. How many times do we judge people based on their skin color, their gender, their background, without ever knowing their true worth? Reynolds believes Samantha didn't belong on that ski slope, just like some people believe others don't belong in certain spaces. But who decides that? Who has the right to say where someone belongs? This story proves that we are all equal in the eyes of fate. When tragedy strikes, it doesn't ask about race, status, or position. It just happens. And in those moments, the people we least expect might be the ones who save us. So now we turn the question to you. Do you think Reynolds truly learned his lesson? Will he go back to his old ways, or did this experience truly change him? And what about Samantha? Should she have helped him, or should she have left him to face the consequences of his own actions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to A1 Storyteller. We bring you powerful, thought-provoking stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. And remember, the world is watching. How will you choose to treat others? We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay kind, stay aware, and stay tuned to A1 Storyteller.